Go into your room, that's right. Sit on that fat of yours and do nothing but listen to records.
Excuse me?
Okay, we're gonna get started here talking about one of the most important parts of this whole process, which is pressing plant capacity and the willingness of people to step up to the plate and invest large amounts of money in pressing plants so we can keep the supply of records where it has to be, and so artists get their music recorded and pressed and released in a timely manner. So it was only a couple of years ago that there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, this is 2 or 3 years ago, that said, vinyl is dead, vinyl is over, because there are going to be no more new pressing plants, no one's going to invest in new presses, and it's finished. It was called Vinyl is on its Last Legs by Neil Shah from the Wall Street Journal. Is Neil here? I want you to believe it, but he's not here. At any rate, as we know, there are new pressing plants, there are new presses, and so this panel is going to be a discussion with some of the people who have taken their money or borrowed money and made pressing plants. So, I will introduce everybody because it'll be faster if I do that. So, and I'm doing this in the order that I have it written here while I was on a plane coming back from Denmark yesterday, where I went to Ordofon, that's a whole other story. So, Sean Berkowski, independent record pressing, right there, okay? And he's the general manager of independent record pressing located in Bordentown, New Jersey, just outside Trenton, New Jersey, which is between Philadelphia and New York City. Mr. Rutkowski has had the privilege of working around music since 1992 as a buyer for National Record Mark in Pittsburgh and Blockbuster. He was sales and marketing with the Warner Brothers Music Group and was also general manager of Alternative Distribution Alliance. He's been with Independence since 2015 when IRP found the building and opened the plant, starting with 6 Hamilton presses procured from RIP 5 in Canada, which I believe originally came from Hub Serval in New Jersey. So the presses went from New Jersey to Canada and back to New Jersey, which is another cool story. And you currently have warm tone presses in Viral Tech. Is that true? Okay, all of his facts are correct. Jeff Truin from Cascade Record Pressing, on the end there. He's a lifelong Portland, Oregon resident. He's operations manager and co-founder of Cascade Record Pressing in Milwaukee, Oregon. He spent the previous 2 decades splitting time between working in the motorcycle industry and as a touring musician. At Cascade, he oversees and maintains the mechanical operations for the Pacific Northwest's only automated record pressing plant. Gator Russo. Here's Gator Russo. He is the director of operations at Gold Rush Vinyl in Austin, Texas, a pressing plant that's been in operation for 6 months. Gold Rush provides high-quality, fast turnaround record pressing for bands and brands of all sizes. He's a music-loving operations executive with a formal background in fine art and design. He's a proud father and husband who loves baseball. Go Mets. The last is also a loser. But whatever. Okay. And next up we have Justin Crowther, Burlington Record Plant, right here, located in Burlington, Vermont. It bills itself as Northeast's premier pressing plant. The principals are a self-taught team of engineers and musicians who learned everything by surrounding themselves with industry veterans, including Kevin Smith, Warren Hall, Mike Archer, Liz Dunster, Steve Sheldon, Gary Sahlstrom, and Tom Burnage. The facility custom-built every aspect of its 1,250 square foot location, which houses 2 semi-automatic record presses, a restored 60-0 machine, and a new one designed and built in Burlington. Burlington specializes in small runs, custom colors, and specialty formats. Is that all correct? Good, because you gave me the information, so that's good. Okay. Dustin Blocker, hand-drawn pressing. Dustin Blocker is the co-owner of chief and creative officer of both the independent record label Hand Drawn Records and the vinyl recording manufacturer Hand Drawn Pressings in Addison, Texas. Hand Drawn Pressing, founded in the winter of 2014, began as a record broker and in January 2017 became the world's first pressing facility to launch with Viral Tech's warm tone record presses. Featured in Wire, Forbes, and Popular Science, Hand Drawn quickly grew to full capacity, and with its commitment to exceeding customer expectations and high quality production, the company continues to thrive. As global demand for vinyl expands, Hand-Drawn is dedicated to increasing efforts towards best-in-class customer service and is well-positioned for additional growth. Zane Howard, where's Zane? Zane. I met Zane when he was just dreaming of this a couple of years ago. So, Second Line Vinyl. He's the CEO of Oakland, California's Second Line Vinyl, which he founded in 2016. Second Line Vinyl is a technologically advanced, state-of-the-art record pressing plant and music product company that's designed to deliver the artist's intended experience. Howard brings to Second Line Vinyl over a decade's worth of experience in branding and marketing for Del Monte, data analysis at Nielsen, and manufacturing at Columbus. Why does Nielsen so give us the numbers for records? I mean, Jeezy pressed 45 million records probably, more last year, and they're saying 8 million records were sold last year? I mean, that's nonsense. But anyway, during that time, Mr. Howard managed award-winning brands, and we've got to keep moving some time. He assembled a diverse group of people, and it uses modern machinery, a modern supply chain, and quality control systems designed to facilitate both record manufacturing and the ease with which recording artists can make money from their efforts, which is good. As an adjunct to its core function, Second Line is building the Community Arts Center, Bumptown. Ryan Lewis, Kindercore. Everybody's show. This is great. Mr. Lewis co-founded the Kindercore Records label in 1996 in Athens, Georgia with Dan Geller. Lewis has played in various touring bands dating back to the mid-90s, including the Sunshine Fix, the Four Corners, and the Agenda. Kindercore Records closed in 2003 following a disastrous business deal with some criminals masquerading as a distributor. Are they in the audience?
No.
I'm not surprised.
One of them's hiding in Canada.
Lewis opened the Kindercore vinyl pressing plant in Athens, Georgia on Halloween 2017. He lives in Athens, Georgia with his wife, daughter, and various dogs and cats. So first of all, I think they all deserve a big round of applause for what they have been doing for all of us. They put their money where their mouths are. It's easy for a journalist like me to champion vinyl, but these guys did the real work. So I want to open this up to a discussion. I'm not going to ask you individual questions, but we have some smaller operations here and some larger operations. I want everybody to give the people here an idea of what your experience has been opening a pressing plant, getting it up and running, and actually starting to make money doing it. So let's just start right here.
Very exciting, at times very frustrating and very challenging, but in the end extraordinarily rewarding, I would say.
And you go smaller, you call an artesian.
We're a smaller plant. We have 2 warm tone machines right now. Our volume is growing as we speak. This past month, I think we pressed around 25,000 records.
Which is close to what Nielsen reported the entire country sold.
So my experience, I got a machine from Germany originally, and it was from the 60s in shambles, and took 3 months, pretty much night and day, to take that apart, and I was lucky enough to make friends kind of by nagging this engineer that works with Burton Snowboards and built their prototype facility. So I talked him into coming over and helping me take that stuff apart, and it was like 3 months, and then we finally had steam rolling and it was time to go. It was just kind of a progression from there, but very taxing because I didn't have anybody there that had made records before, so I think I kind of did it to myself by doing it the hard way in hindsight, but I love it very much now, and it worked.
So as you go down the line, I'm just interested in how the towns where you're located, or the municipalities, how you were welcomed by them, how many difficulties you had in terms of EPA or in terms of environmental issues. So if you could bring that into the discussion, I think it's useful for people that are trying to do this.
So for me personally, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life in 25 years of being in the music industry. I made like a whole list of notes here, which would take up the rest of this panel, but I'll just say right here, project your cost, project your revenue, then double your cost, then cut your revenue half. And cut your timeline, double your timeline, and then you'll get an accurate picture of the financial investment you're making. I think every plant here, everyone that's starting a plant, that would probably be a pretty accurate representation of what they've gone through. If not, please tell me, because I'd be amazed. What you said about township, actually, for me, one of the biggest fears when we started in Bordentown was actually dealing with the township. But one of the things that's really cool about what we do is we're manufacturing something that has an emotional impact to people, and people feel like it's so cool. The township has been actually the easiest part of this process. You go in, as long as you just go in and talk to your town and not come off as an asshole, don't come off as someone that knows more than they do, because what you'll find out is you can ask 10 experts the exact same question, you're gonna get 9 completely different answers, and then the other 9 guys will trash talk everyone else that you just talked to. So that's the reality. So you know almost as much as anybody else knows, I've found through this process, but just being very respectful to your township, ask questions. At the end of the day, they want to make sure that you're safe. They want to make sure that you're doing everything that's environmentally responsible, as do we. We don't always know exactly what we're doing or how to do it, so asking questions. And make sure you're generous with giving tours. People love to see the process of making records, whether it's the town official, whether it's OSHA, whether it's the boiler guy at state inspection. Be super generous about showing them your plant and feel proud about what you do. I mean, we make every mistake every other plant's made, but I'm proud of what we do, and that really, really helps.
Thank you.
We have 3 warm tone presses in Athens. Athens, Georgia is a sort of legendary college music scene. So the town was very open to what we were doing. We'd had a history being a record label there. Making records is really difficult. I can't tell you how many people have gotten in touch with me over the last year and said, "Oh, I read this article about these new presses. You just press a button and just good records come out." So I was thinking about putting one in my house. So oh, cool. Your floor handles 17,000 pounds, and boiler room and all that. 5 psi gas line. All these things that you don't think about when you're going into it. But yeah, opening a factory is no joke. But it's the greatest thing that I've done, aside from, I guess, my daughters. Sorry, Poppy. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. It is, but it's very difficult, and you have to listen. Like we were talking about quality control earlier. But listening is the most important thing to us. We spend most of our time on quality control.
I did not get. I guess I'm, second line. We're the newest. Our presses arrived a couple weeks ago. Our boiler's being connected. We'll be pressing the first records in Oakland, California since 1937. So the community is it is the easy part. Like, you tell people you're making a vinyl record pressing plant, they're like, what? I want to see this. Like, hey, can we do a tour? Can I do events there? Like, that's definitely one of the easiest parts. I agree, this is I've done some hard shit. And I've marriages and other things, and vinyl manufacturing plants, the hardest. And I have 3 daughters. This is the hardest. And I was thinking like, oh, these guys are like a support group, and we should pop champagne. We should pop champagne. And I was like, no, it's not champagne. We need shots of whiskey. Like, it's seriously. Yeah.
I'd actually like to blame you for my conditions.
Yeah. So we shot those whiskey shots last night, but and there's a difference between passion and love. What we're doing is not passion; it's love. Because if it was passion, we would have stopped 2 years ago. So it's the right thing to do for the community. It's a physical place. It's a physical product. It's a passionate product, and every city needs one of these plants. I think, and it's a coral reef for the music business scene. So,
Yeah, it's great. And I think I'd echo what everybody else is saying. It's very difficult, of course. We've been in operation coming on 2 years now. We were the first to launch with new technology, and exactly what Ryan said. It's you can have great machines, but it's going to be about the people. So what we've really found is the people that we've hired on, that we've trained, that we work with daily. Those technicians are the key to the whole thing. So you can have the greatest presses, the greatest boiler, you can spend all the money you want. If you don't have passionate people, but of course, yes, lovers of the medium, but also bought into your company, the overall vision. That's what we really found. And then besides the guys internally, partnerships. So, you know, one big thing I think has been amazing already just this morning, seeing everybody from different walks of life, everybody that's coming in, you know, from different segments of business, trying to sell to one another, trying to work with one another. Just getting them in one room is just a huge applause for you guys, the Making Vinyl panel, just to put us all in here. Because daily, without our partners, we just couldn't make it work. So, you know, we're sitting with guys that we work with daily that we have to blow up. Hey, this wasn't right. We don't want to have records that have skips or pops or whatever. And they have to be accountable to say, hey, we're going to fix it, or maybe it's our mistake, maybe it's y'all's mistake, etc. But if you don't have that accountability going back and forth externally and really do it on the partnership side, I think it's going to be a rougher road. So that's my big one. It's all about the people, and I think it always will be.
We were, like Sean and the guys at Independent, we got our equipment from RIV when they closed. And we have 6 Hamiltons that we rehabbed. We rebuilt every one of the machines, and they've been running. We're also one of the first of the new plants. We've been open since 2015. It was a grand and noble overtaking. We almost threw in the towel before we even get started. It was a lot of work. But the first record that came off the line made it all worthwhile, and now a couple and a half million records later, it's still great to go to work every day and love what we're doing. And like everyone else, we couldn't have done it without the partnerships that we made within the industry, and without the community was very supportive. We were all enthusiasts. None of us knew how to make a record. We'd all, been listening to them, collecting them, putting them out. I've had records pressed in most of the plants in the country since I was a kid, Rainbow and RTI and United. It was a wonderful experience to be able to become part of the industry, and furthering those partnerships, being able to be in a room full of people that all share the same common interest is great. I think for a long time, the lines of communication in the industry were kind of shut down, and it's really cool to be able to share with other people that all have a common interest.
So when you guys say you rebuilt a press, or you're pressing records and there are individuals there that are pressmen now. So when you rebuild a press, where do you find the expertise to do that? And do you go to local machine shops and show them the part that's worn out that you need to replace? And who's running these presses? Do you train people, and how do you find those people to train? It's open to anybody.
For me, I was a motorcycle mechanic for 22 years. I grew up on a farm. I had a lot of crossover experience that I was able to utilize. A lot of the stuff is not unlike any other manufacturing industry, the pneumatic and hydraulic side. Luckily for everybody, there's still some manufacturers out there like RPA that provide huge amounts of material for everybody in the pressing industry. If you can't get it, you have to make it. So I also had great resources, machine shops, and some other guys that I was able to work with.
When you walk in and say, I need a part for a record press, what's their reaction?
I think everybody's pretty excited about it. I think most people want to get involved. It's not often people have the opportunity to work with this equipment, and I think on even the most minute level, I think people have an enjoyable time just getting involved.
And who are the guys that are manning the presses now at your various factories?
I do. And him.
So
I also.
You're not pressing records today because you're here?
No, we did that. We were there like 24 hours a day, every day last week, making records.
To make up for
Quality control has a lot to do today.
Everybody else.
One of the interesting things of the learning curve on the Hamiltons, I mean, that thing is, the best way to compare it is like an old versus new car. Like the older presses are kind of like a 70s Camaro. When it runs really well, but you're constantly having to fix it. The new machines, they run really well, they're consistent. When there's a fault or something like that, you got to kind of trace it down 4 or 5 steps down the line, need multiple people to help you do it. But the thing I found is just hiring people that are willing to learn, no matter how young and old they are. I mean, vinyl today is not the same as vinyl was 20, 30 years ago. I think Sam made a good point. I think the level of quality, the people with the expectation for level quality has gone from here up to here because music is free. So when people are spending money on $20, $30, $40 worth of stuff, they expect more. So the level of quality, has to be. I keep telling the staff, it's like, that's the number one thing. Everybody has to. Like I said, we've made every mistake every plant in this country's made more than once, but that you just keep having to do that, and it's trying to instill that level of quality in everyone there, keeping them motivated and passionate. But really, it's just being willing to learn and listen is the biggest thing. I mean,
So what's the average age of a press band today working in your factories? How old are they?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm 43 and he's 38, so do the math. Oh, 40, sorry, I forgot. Congratulations. So I guess it's 42 and a half, 41 and a half, yeah, okay.
Pre-middle age, I call that.
Yeah, ours are 20 to early 30s. And we hire musicians, really. So somebody explained to me, I'm a musician myself. I had a drummer tell me a long time ago that musicians are problem solvers at the very core. And I think a lot of artists could probably attribute to that. So, musicians typically walk into a room that nobody really cares if they're there, and they have to set up a stage that maybe the sound guy doesn't like them, and they have to make people enjoy themselves and maybe sell some merch at the end of the night. So, they're constantly putting out fires and solving problems.
Well, they had to get there.
Yeah, and how did they even get there, and what was the vehicle? And
Touring was the best training I ever had for
that's exactly right. And so I think, kind of the hardship, I think you've kind of, it's been echoed down the panel. It's not easy. From the beginning of the process, the middle process, the end of the process, it's a very complicated craftsmanship level. So the guys that we have, they had no prior technical experience, I guess you could say, in record pressing, because not many people do. But when you talk about, pipe fitting and welders and things that maybe could attribute, I would think, ex-military would probably be a good one too. Guys that work in the Navy, things like that. I think there's a lot of those guys that have been kind of cropping up in the industry, and it's something new and fresh, and not a lot of people do it, so I think it's exciting for them.
To call this new and fresh is pretty amazing, don't you think, in 2018? Because it's not new and it's not fresh, but it is, again.
I mean, and it really is different. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I think at least for those of us that have automatic presses or new presses, I mean, I think it's a different ballgame. There's a lot that goes into it.
So how difficult is it to integrate into one factory, is for some of you, an old press from the 70s with a brand new high-tech press? How difficult is it to be running both at the same time?
When we did the upgrade, we had to basically extend our infrastructure. It was harder than building a new plant, because new plant, you're not up, you're not running. There's really no expectations except from your owners in terms of timelines. When you are doing it in the middle of production and there are customer expectations and all, potential shutdowns and startups, keeping a press plant running while you're doing a big upgrade is
It's terrifying.
So there must be some downtime, some time where you couldn't be pressing because you had...
Oh yeah, we had there was 1 week when we literally had to bring in, the electric company bring in a transformer. So we were running in the building we're in, we have 2 tenants, we literally had to bring a 18-wheeler generator in to power the entire building for 1 week. And have oil deliveries made every single day to keep that generator running, so we could keep the other tenants going, or our landlord wouldn't have let it do it, and actually press records for a couple days in between while they switch things out.
Is there ever a time when you're pressing records when it's just running smoothly, the records are coming out, packaged, shipped down?
Yes.
Yes?
Somewhat few and far between, but when they do hit, it feels amazing.
Oh yeah, best feeling ever. It doesn't usually last very long.
The funny...
Wow, that was a great 10 minutes.
The funniest thing that I made a note here to myself, I was like, there's so many different variables in pressing a record, but a well-recorded, well-mastered and mixed, well-cut, well-plated, well-pressed record, it sounds amazing. It sounds awesome.
Amen.
Oh,
yeah.
But the best-sounding records we've ever pressed were also the easiest records to press, because everything hit on every single level.
Yeah, if a record starts out hard to press, it's going to be hard to press the whole time. You know, I mean, like there's, I don't know what it is, black magic, voodoo, whatever, weirdness, but I mean, there are some records where it's like, this is gonna be a slog, you know?
And how many of you are pressing 180 gram records?
We do 140 only.
Yeah, that's more difficult, right? Getting the vinyl to squeeze itself all the way out before we're starting to harden, before it gets to, you have to control temperature better, it's harder. How many people don't think it makes any difference, the thickness, then it's just a big selling item?
I mean, it feels nice.
I mean, I'm a big believer in the 180 just for the aesthetic purpose. People are buying it for, you know, because it's a piece of again, they have an emotional connection to it, and it just feels better. So I mean, and it warps. It's a lot less prone to warping too. So we like that because then there's one less potential down the road, because a record can get, once it leaves our facility, there 20 gazillion things can happen.
That's the scariest
way. So
I think the category is kind of using 180 grams as the quality standard, but it's not, that's not a standard of quality.
No, it's not.
People come to me like, oh, you can do the 180 gram, those things are highest quality. I'm like, no, it's actually, if it sounds good, it's flat, and it's, you know, there's other attributes. I think there's an opportunity to educate people on the actual factors of quality that are beyond just the weight of the
Right,
record.
the weight of the record doesn't have, in my
I've had some great sounding
experience.
Hydaflex records that, you know, that when you put it on
Yeah.
the table, it root over, so it,
I think education is key. Educating the customer has been pretty huge for us. There's sort of this expectation of perfection from a younger generation that's come off of MP3s and digital downloads and CDs. And most of those are not mechanical processes. And every step of the vinyl manufacturing process is mechanical, from cutting your lacquer to plating, installing it on the presses, pressing that record. There's so many variables involved, and you can't have that expectation of perfection, because the record in and of itself is not a perfect product, but it is perfect for all of us that love it. And I think overcoming that with a lot of our younger clients and inexperienced labels and that sort of thing was a bit of a challenge at first, and still is, but I think it's also key in understanding quality control. I think that all plants do the best they can to try to produce quality records. Our standard is 140 gram. We had gaylords of records that were just thousands and thousands and thousands of reject records before we realized that we were just being hypersensitive and overdoing our quality control. Education is key. I think just educating the marketplace. I don't see a ton of that, but
I try. I tell people, you know, don't expect perfection. There's always going to be little, minor, tiny things. I tell those people, don't ever go see live music, because people are coughing and choking in front of them and behind them, and you know, you're going to get a pop or a click. It's not the end of the world. If you want perfect, get a CD. It doesn't sound that great, but it's perfect.
So we've been pressing 6 months, like we mentioned, and what we found, not to split hairs, is if you make a good puck, you're going to make a good record. And shout out to our plastic vendor for helping us identify that. But our standard is actually 180 gram. I'd say 80 to 85% of what we've pressed so far has been 180 in our 6 months.
And you got it down to do a good record with it.
We definitely have it down with the opaque colors and the black, and there's some subtle nuances with some of the specialty compounds, but yes, we successfully produce 180 on a daily basis.
And how many of you press colored vinyl along with black vinyl? That's a problem, because you have to empty out the bins of all the pellets and start with a new color and make sure there's no mixing of that. And,
Unless you convince the customer to be okay with transition records, which we try to do.
And what about sound quality? Do you hear any difference between colored records and black records?
For me, I think everybody here, color records are a pain in the ass to press. So the temperature flow and everything it's definitely different than black. And a lot of times things that won't show up on black record will show up on a color record. Translucent seem to sound better than opaques, I would say. I think but the dynamics of pressing a record, the science of it is much different with color versus black.
And how many of your presses are automated in the sense that the temperature is monitored and kept controlled, which is a recent innovation actually, and it's made a tremendous difference. So how many of you have that?
I mean, we're also constantly adjusting it throughout the day too, as the room gets warmer, as the humidity changes. I mean, we're in the South, so we deal with a lot of humidity.
Cool breeze running through the room will change how your records are coming off the press.
Yeah.
You have to be a weatherman on top of everything else.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Also, I'd like to say, we use color concentrate, so we use 1 to 2%. We add to clear, so we just stock clear and black compound. And I have like an old, beside the press, 7-inch grinder, and I personally vacuum the grinder out, and I can grind specific colors, and I archive them and keep them and offer them to the customers. So I can do splatter colors, but we do 60%, I would say at least, of the records we make are custom colors. So kind of carve that out, and I've been forced to stockpile all the different colors and find an efficient way to do it. But our data points stay the same through color and through black, pretty much 9 times out of 10. And that didn't come easy, but I'm not budging on it, really. So.
Virgin vinyl versus regrind. Anybody regrind records?
Yeah, absolutely. You're kidding. Yeah, recycle. I mean,
It's fine.
keep it clean.
You're right, it's good.
Keep it clean, it's great. I mean, I personally love pressing with colored vinyl. We do a lot of custom color mixing and stuff. It's a pain, but it's also really exciting. It's fun.
Virginity is overrated, right? Unless you're a Supreme Court justice.
Well, dust is the enemy, right? So dust is going to be the enemy. It's going to be attracted to the PVC. It's going to get into your compound, regrind, clean. So really, we're in a large facility. They do a lot of hand packing. So cardboard boxes are constantly being opened and cut open. And that dust, you'd just be surprised by how much accumulates over the weekend. So that's the first thing that happens Monday morning. There's, if we're not running over the weekend, is a lot of cleaning throughout. And every shift, I mean, everything's covered. It's gone over with a fine-tooth comb. And one thing, you're talking about humidity and all that. So the presses are one thing, but all the auxiliary equipment, I think you can't really, you can't state that enough how important all that is. Your piping, to your water treatment, to your boilers, to your chillers. That whole infrastructure was more expensive and more time-consuming, and probably has had just as many, if not as many, issues as the presses themselves. So I think that's a big thing for newbies or startups, or where do you find that expertise? Because now at least there's in the market you're coming to, those same guys are making the presses, and it's getting more and more consistent how they're delivering, how they're actually received at the plant itself, and then what do you expect from the press? But then of course you're going aftermarket on every other part, and then expecting it all to work perfect and work against every plant, and that's just not a reality. So I guess if everybody had the exact same pipes, the exact same water, same hardness, same salt treatment, etc., then yeah, everybody could run the same kind of records with the same presses. But again, it's going to come down to the experts, guys that are on the floor every day, really knowing not just their presses but their auxiliary equipment.
I think one of the things that we underestimated the most was storage. I oftentimes joke that we're not in the plastic business, we're in the paper business. Jackets, labels, inserts, boxes, all that stuff takes up a lot of space. And when we originally started out in our facility, it seemed like a giant open warehouse, and within 6 months it was full of paper products.
You're like, how are we going to ever fill this place? And then you turn around and you're like, oh.
And man, are we going to need another place? Now what I've noted with a lot of other plants that have been around for a long time is that you can see them. You can see the progress as they've grown in stages, taking over more and more space, largely for storage, for print, and that sort of thing.
So what's the biggest surprise that you found in between thinking of doing this and doing it, and your expectations? What's been the biggest surprise, if any? Let's go down the line.
Cost of goods. You said earlier about income, double it, right, or how much expenditure is going out. So I'd say the cost of goods are super high, and I think the price tag that our client sees seems to be high, and they go, what's going on? But I mean, we're doing quality product, we're doing craftsmanship level stuff, so the education I think plays into it. But I think we're going to see it's going to cost more and more. Labor is going to cost more, I believe. The same guys that were doing it 2 years ago want to be compensated a little bit differently and higher, hopefully. and then, you know, of course, the plastics in the print product, and then what you're talking about with storage of goods. You know, AC, hopefully if you have air conditioning, it's going to go up as you have to have
Utilities, don't underestimate utilities.
Exactly.
How about educating UPS and FedEx and all these companies that are shipping your records out and leaving them in the sun? Or
Yes.
What can be done?
So-
How do we get together as an industry and standardize that and meet with people at these companies and teach them? Because I get records left in the hot sun.
There are times I think it's a joke. I think if they see that there's a sticker on there that says vinyl record, they actually throw it out in the sun on purpose, or maybe leave it on a wood stove for a couple hours before they deliver it. You know, it's tough as a manufacturer when you get, you know, if you send out a couple thousand records as an order. And this happened to us this summer. We shipped out in the middle of the heat wave. Everything went down through LA and then across the Southwest. We had an entire order that wound up warped, and we remade the entire order. You know, that wasn't our fault. That's from records sitting on a loading dock somewhere in the sun. And yeah, how do you educate them? But then,
what about putting a GPS temperature sensor in a large order where you get a notice that the temperature's gone over a certain amount, you can do something?
well, that comes down to accountability, I think, at that point.
Chase the truck driver down.
I think the other reality is test presses. So test presses to me, and as a company, you know, early on we stated, this is the first thing that the client sees, right? They paid you half, 75%, whatever. All they get back is in 4 or 5 weeks is a couple records. And when they're warped, and it's the first time working with a client or a label that you hope to get return business, and they're warped, it's a big problem. So yeah, really the packaging solutions and what can you do to not have those test presses warped. I think when it gets to full 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 on a pallet, there's going to be less warping, they're packed tighter, etc. But yeah, if anybody in the room has a packaging solution for test presses, and you can raise your hand later, to not get warped when you're in Texas, shipping to the Southwest.
Yeah.
You know.
Us too. UPS has taken a lot of heat on the stage tonight. But,
No pun intended, right?
yeah. FedEx Freight is the real culprit. We get the forklift through the box all the time. You know, get
Absolutely.
order of, you know, a couple thousand jackets with a couple hundred of them destroyed. We spend a lot of time calling FedEx Freight to get them to refund stuff.
And you all have people that stuff the records in the jackets and then you have sealing machines at your plants, or you send them out someplace?
We do it.
You have everything ready to go. And how much problems are there with records shaking around in the jackets and cracking the top of the jacket?
We've never had that happen. I think if you have good smooth edges on the records, that helps a lot. You know, a lot of times when it's ripping through the jacket, you've got jagged edges where the knife hasn't been tightened enough.
So to anyone out here who is thinking of opening a pressing plant, what advice do you have for them? Serious advice.
I would say do as much research as you can up front. One of the more difficult or frustrating things for us, or myself personally, was there was not much documented relative to other industries. So there was only so much of that learning curve that we can kind of take on before the build out and the press was online, and then it was a whole new ballgame after that. But know when to say when. You can't go down that rabbit hole and go beautiful mind style before everything gets there, or you'll be completely worn out by the time the real work starts.
I would say it's much bigger and more complicated than you'd ever think it is, and there's so many steps along the way, and you can't be an expert in but maybe one of those, like 6 or 7 steps. So it's important about partners, finding people that have the experience. And there's guys in the room here that have 40 years experience that you need to become best friends with, buy a beer and talk to them. Like I've been talking to the guy 40 years experience for 2 years now, you know, getting up to the point where we're finally making it press, and they made me impressed, and it's about to make records. But there's also the quality control. There's the peripheral equipment, and I found a book.
Listen.
I found I don't know. I have a dozen people, expert level people that are participating in this to make it happen. So it's much bigger than when you Google, hey, where do I buy a vinyl press? You know, and then 2 years later, you're like, wow, I made a manufacturing plant.
I think if you hate money and you despise free time,
You like getting hurt?
but you love records, then you should open a record pressing plant.
So I want to publicly thank Justin too, as the only person from a pressing plant who would talk to me when we were starting. When we were getting ready, we had a mutual friend. We talked on the phone, and that was a huge help. And I just really appreciate
How
it.
much community is there among you guys? Like, if you have a problem, can you guys call each other and try to solve a problem? Or is that?
That's been one of the most
Yeah.
gratifying parts of actually this job is just some of the relationships and with some of the other plants, whether it's Justin or Ryan or Steve or Rick. I mean, any of the plants or Brandon over. I mean, that's been one of the most just for me comforting things. Is
Support group.
Yeah, so when you're just ready to jump off that bridge, just
Wait, everyone's ready.
and then talk to somebody else. Oh, I'm dealing with this. Like, oh yeah, I just dealt with this last week myself.
Now, none of you guys have plating in-house, right? So you depend upon someone else to do the plating.
Indeed. I think that's the biggest problem in dealing with the EPA and that sort of thing is on the manufacturing end, we don't have a lot of waste. We regrind all of our flash, we punch up all of our records and regrind any discarded records. Our water system is self-contained, the boiler system is contained. There's not a lot of wastage. But when you get into plating, I think that's where, which there still is not a lot of wastage there, but as soon as you say plating, I think that most municipalities start to cringe. And in Oregon, we're notoriously green. I think to open a plating facility would be a minor miracle. If anybody's interested, please start one up there. But,
Is that a bottleneck in this process where you're waiting for stampers because they can't provide them fast enough?
I'd say not on our end. Our plating vendor has been the most reliable vendor we've worked with.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
can name names.
Thank you. Welcome to 1979.
All right, let's see how we're doing for time. We're actually in about 6 or 7 minutes.
I'm curious real quick, how many folks in the audience are considering or have already decided to start their own pressing facility? And real quick, just holler it out, how far down the line or where are you at within the process?
Here. Yeah, about 3 months. Middle of next year.
Is everyone through permitting? Was one of your earlier questions, municipality?
Finally.
I think at this point, so many municipalities are so desperate for a tax base and for manufacturing and for jobs that they're willing to.
Yeah, we found that in Athens, absolutely. People were super supportive. And the local government and the state have been very supportive.
And as we were saying before, there's a community involved in this, so you will invite people in the community, you'll have like in schools.
We have field trips, yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, Girl Scout troop, the troop leader for my daughter's Girl Scout troop, they came, we got a badge in robotics from checking out the machines. We had, middle school and grade school field trips. I mean, it's important, it's part of its education in that way too, so.
So when a record has to get from your plant to a store in Athens, Georgia, does it have to go all the way to someplace else?
Absolutely.
All the way back?
Yeah. It's amazing because the store's like right down the street. When I go down there and see the records, I'm like, man, I could have given you this weeks ago.
And that's how billing works, man. That's just how it is.
Just have to
I don't like it either. It's
if we
dumb.
don't use all that gas, who
We
will?
can't figure out how to do that shit.
All right, anything else anybody wants to say?
I would just like to say, like I know Mike Archer is doing his thing right now, he's not here. There's a lot of people that really helped me out in the beginning, Warren and Rick at RTI and Steve Sheldon, like all Kevin and Bill Smith. He's got a new gig now, but I still keep in touch with him. Like I taught it to myself, I got books in 1960s hydraulics, and without them, like I wouldn't have turned into the lunatic I am today. And they gave me the strength, and it's been awesome working with Sean and everyone else here, and just honored. And I'm surprised to hear myself say that, but I love it. So
My sentiments are the same. We couldn't have done any of this without, of course, the support of the people in the community that that are ordering records from us, but more importantly, the people within the community that have helped us out along the way, RTI and Casey and TPC, and the help from within is really lets you know that you're on the right path, and that support is penultimate to nothing. It's we wouldn't be where we are without it.
Yeah, the anti-vinyl story that was in the Wall Street Journal said that TPC is a three-man shop in Laguna Beach, California. And then I went to Bangkok and saw the petrochemical company. I mean, the stories about vinyl, the anti-vinyl stories, I don't know where that energy comes from at this point, but it's interesting and it's fun fighting it, actually.
I can't leave this panel without, I promised our local shop that I would tell record labels to stop being so greedy on new vinyl, though, charging $19 to stores to stock new vinyl, and a customer can come in and the store might make $3 because that's all they can mark it up, and it runs off customers. And I mean, I know we all, especially like, oh, there's a physical medium that's selling, this is where we can make our money back, but it's dangerous. It's a dangerous game to try and run off the customers by raising the prices or keeping them that high, especially when we're talking about catalog stuff. There's no reason that a Billy Joel reissue should be $19 cost for the store.
Yeah, so you know what you're sending it out to the record label for, what it's costing.
I know how much it costs.
What money you're making on it, and then when it gets to the store, you're saying that the prices are not commensurate with what the cost structure is.
The price that the store has to pay, it doesn't allow them enough margin to, $3 on a new item is really not enough of a margin to make a living,
Okay, I just want to say one thing real quick. I totally
Should I have said this to you privately, or?
Look, I can only speak for my company. I will tell you that over the last decade, we have not materially increased prices. If you look at single LPs, we're either at $19 or $21.98. That means our total cost is well below that. Our margin to retail store, on average, about 35 points. So I can't speak for everybody else, but we all gotta fucking make money. So I gotta keep all the lights on in New York and that big building that we're in.
Trump Tower?
We are.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
We're from Vermont, and I promise to say, go Bernie.
Yes.
But I think that your point is well taken. I don't like doing this. I bought a record last night. That is a copy of a record that's a 2LP 45 half-speed master from the band. And I paid $32.99 retail for it.
What?
I'm stupid. Don't.
Well, there are different aspects of getting the thing produced that change the cost.
That book, in my book, that would not have went out to market at that price from the Warner Music Group. We would have brought it down because I know what goes into that. A lot of people don't know that dynamic I do.
Right.
Everybody's got to make their own choices about how they do things. So for me, for Warner Music Group, we're trying to keep shit low as possible and still keep our lights on too.
I'll tell them.
Everybody's got a story.
I always say, because when I talk to the employees, or I think no one's getting rich off this that I've seen, except maybe UPS and FedEx.
Okay, we're just about done. I just want to say, if you had told me 30 years ago when I started screaming about vinyl records and put a bumper sticker on my car that said, compact discs sound terrible, we got to do something about this, and I'm standing there now, I would have believed it. I would have believed it because I thought this would happen, and I believed it, and it's amazing that it's happened, and I'm just extremely happy to be here. And thank you all panelists.
So we got to take a half-hour networking break. Be back here at 11:15 to hear the latest sales numbers.